Asteroid of fear.
Here we go. Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of the Men of the House podcast. And on today's episode, I have Stephan Neff, and we're going to talk about all things alcohol, addiction. And as you guys know, if you've been listening to the show, I just hit 1 year about 6 days ago of sobriety from alcohol. And yeah, so I'm excited to have this conversation. And you're going to see Stephan has his own podcast regarding this. And I've been on his, and that will be released later in the summer. But this is kind of in my wheelhouse since I come from a healthcare background, and so does Stephan. So, how are you doing today?
I'm doing ever so well. Thank you very much for having me. It's an honor and a privilege to be a guest on your show.
Well, thank
This
you.
is such a beautiful time to talk about the power that we have got to change not just the world. The world is easy. We can change that easily. No, it's the to change what is going on inside of ourselves. That's really where the challenge starts, and that many people keep forgetting. But we
Yeah.
have got that power. Both you and I have proven it. So congratulations on your 1 year, man.
Oh, thank you.
That is superb.
Yeah. I didn't even celebrate it as much, because it's kind of one of these things where I don't want to over-identify
Mm.
with that piece of me. I don't want to make it a big deal in a way, even
Mm.
though it is, but it can easily go away. And it's something to be kind of treated with respect, I guess you could say, from
Mm.
my point of view, because all it takes is one lapse in judgment, one lapse in reason, one failure to impulse control, and you're back. And I don't want that. So,
No one ever does, but what's
no,
the statistic?
yes.
80% in the first year, okay? So, and sooner or later, life will give you a shit sandwich where you think, okay, suddenly the the advantages of you using again will suddenly outweigh the pain of not doing so. So it is one of those things. We have made this indelible connection between pain relief, emotional pain relief, and alcohol, or for other people, a number of other things. So it's not, alcohol is not particularly special. We could say sugar, sex,
Yeah.
pornography, gambling, drugs, legal, illegal, doesn't matter what. They are all fulfilling the same task. They are there to help us escape our reality and to help us numb the pain. And these are the typical reasons why we have fallen prey to alcohol or anything else.
Yeah. Well, before we go too deep in that, because I definitely had some thoughts in terms of my only lie to myself was, I can control it. But then I always end up doing it every day. So, but let's start off with a little bit about your background, where
Sure.
you're located, kind of your how
Mhm.
you ended up in this arena and face to face with me, and what led us here. Because I think it's
Well,
both some of our choices, but also I think the transformation out of those choices
mhm,
is kind of what's propelled us to be face to face in a way.
exactly. And where to start, man? I come from Germany, born 66 in Germany, to lower socioeconomic kind of couple who tried to make ends meet, and they had their own traumas, they had their own problems. And you have to say 66, so my mum was born in the last days of the Second World War. So
Oh
her
wow.
youth was basically completely colored by the experiences that she had, that of famine, that of difficulties, that of a very uncertain world. And so she has had her traumas, and there's nowadays enough evidence to show that these kind of traumas are handed down. And if I was to go further back in generations,
Oh yeah.
goodness gracious,
World War II. I
there
mean,
is
just talking about the
exactly
war and
exactly, and the whole things that led up to it. So bottom line is there is a lot of trauma there before I was even born. Then lower socioeconomic class means, you know, probably not the greatest coping mechanisms included
yeah.
there. Divorce at the age of 4, single mum who went out to work. I grew up with great grandma, no real role models there. And basically, I sort of made it up all myself. And that all went sort of okay until I was wrong place, wrong time when I was 13 and became the victim of a gang assault. And
Oh,
just because these whatever you want to call them had nothing better to do. So I ended up pretty beaten up, and this was the changing point in my life. That was sort of early 70s, and no one really knew much about PTSD, and certainly no one, I never had any diagnosis that early on, or any support for that matter. But I very soon became enamored with martial arts and became Rambo, for the lack of a better word.
hmm.
My life was very dark, and my life was that of a warrior, of a fighter for the next 5 years. And it changed me. It changed me from a little bit of a putchy kind of teenager towards a fighting machine. And that body transformation was just immense, I have to say. And then I had brought the gang leader behind bars. He had threatened to kill me, those kind of things. So it keeps going in your head. You know that in
Right.
3 years' time, in my mind, there was a fight life to death. And so I became Rambo. But then time passed and I was good at school, so I ended up in university. And I knew this guy would never ever find me. So that was the first realization. Second realization was, oh, they are girls. That's something new. And third realization, one Saturday afternoon, was the second magic thing that happened in my life. The first one, the assault. The second one, me having on an empty stomach a liter of German lovely beer in a beer garden. Sun was shining, it was warm, two friends around me, and suddenly I heard this laughter coming from somewhere, and I didn't recognize it. And only a few seconds later did I realize it came out of me. I had not laughed for 5 years.
Mm.
One of the reasons was that the guys knocked my teeth out, and I had sort of temporary crowns that sort of kept falling out. And you can imagine what that does to a young man's self-confidence. But they had now been replaced, and suddenly this warmth, this love was in every fiber of my body. Oh, what was that? Oh, that was the beer, the alcohol. Wow. And that memory I will never be able to delete. That release of tension, that relief. It was so beautiful. Ah, and that's the problem. So you've got this powerful memory that's pretty much overriding everything else. And for the next few years, alcohol was a real good friend of mine, because here I was, this kind of really statuesque kind of good-looking dude. And once I had the alcohol in me, I became relaxed. No more inhibitions. I had no problems talking to girls. And, well, okay, I became very good in that game. So again, this was all beneficial.
Right.
And so on it went. So there were a lot of advantages of the alcohol. The alcohol was allowing me in my sexuality to control my bodily functions perfectly. So there was a time in my life when I could have asked a girl in jest, well, how long shall we make love together?
Yeah.
Huh? An hour, hour and a half? And she would laugh. Hour and a half later, come on, get on with it. Because I could control my body with
Yeah.
the right amount of alcohol, those kind of things. So a lot of advantages. But guess what? I had never dealt with the trauma. Life has got the habit of throwing you more trauma than you care to stomach. And somehow, somewhere, someone thought, hey, this guy can take a lot of shit. So they gave me even more shit and more shit. And I had never learned any other coping mechanisms than the alcohol. So whilst I was as a doctor, as a man who is going out there and grabbing the bull by its horns, I was achieving accolades. And I guess I had become a workaholic long before I had become an alcoholic. So I've thrown myself into work because that was another way of escaping my reality. At first at school, so I was going to school, then I would go earn some money after school, and then I would train. So this would be my
Right.
whole day. So talk about escaping reality. And I continued with that. So I became this overachiever with lots of alphabet soup behind the name.
And the alcohol
And
never impacted any of your
no, no,
college
no,
studies or anything like that?
nope, nope. No, I could very easily separate those things. There were times when I was partying wild, and there were times when I had some peppermint tea and was studying my anatomy textbooks, and it was beautiful. So this was in the early time when ultimately there was still a balance.
Right.
But as I said, the more trauma comes, the more you find yourself in scenarios where you're stretched to your limits, the easier it is to fall back on something that takes away the pain, even if you have created a scenario with the pain. For example, if you work like a madman 16 hours a day, well, surprise, surprise, you're heading for a burnout sooner or later because
Mhm.
you have not learned the work-life balance. And that was exactly me to a T. So I was this workaholic boom and bust kind of thing. And I was proud of it. Look what I can achieve.
But
Only then,
that's kind of like the model in healthcare in a way.
oh yeah, touche, touche, absolutely. This was the times when you had to be there before the boss and you had to leave after the boss. And the boss was there at 6 in the morning. You're right, absolutely. 90-hour work weeks? Absolutely. So what are you complaining about? And it
It's type
fitted
A
with
person, well,
society.
it's type A personalities, and the thing is when you
Yep,
put so many type A's and achievers around each other who constantly want to outdo each other,
absolutely.
they will grind their faces off, just to
Very
win.
true.
Because
Very true.
the only thing better than winning is not losing.
Very, very true. Very
Yeah.
true.
So it's kind
And
of
I,
it's a cultural thing. And I know, I mean, I know you went through a different training and healthcare system, but I
mm,
would guess it's
mm.
similar in that what 90-hour weeks for residents.
Worse, worse.
Worse.
Germany is very hierarchical. So the Chefarzt, the boss is God. Okay, like in a bad movie, he is
Mm,
God. Okay, and the power that is unbelievable. Certainly, it was at that time when I studied. Things might have changed a little bit now, but it's still a very hierarchical
yeah.
system in Germany. Then again, I moved overseas because in Germany I couldn't get a job. That was just after the wall came down. Berlin had free medical universities, one went bust. So you had about 5,000 doctors on the street. You could get a doctor to mow your lawn.
Oh
So that was the
wow.
scenario when I finished medicine. So I ended up
Wow.
very soon in the United Kingdom. From there I met Mrs. Wright, and we decided to emigrate to ultimately New Zealand,
Hmm.
but we had initially planned United States. So I did university again. So during the day I worked as a baby anaesthetist, and at nighttime I was sitting in the library and again learned medicine, this time in English, in order to prepare for all the exams that you need
The
to be in the
boards.
United States. Exactly. So that was harsh. And again, same kind of thing, working incredibly long hours, having 24 hours on, 24 hours off kind of schedules. And that was crazy times. And again, there was no lifestyle, there was no work-life balance. It was just work, 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 and then drink to decompress. So it
Yeah.
was this kind of lifestyle that sort of permeated through the next really 3 decades, well, 2 decades, better said. And yeah, it is one of these things. This was something that I tried to maintain until the trauma became so bad and so severe and so much more, parents. I spent a lot of money to bring my mum and my dad out of Germany. Within a short period of arrival, my stepdad became ill with cancer, and he
Mm.
rotted away over about a year and a half. And by that time, my mum finally came out with the fact that she had breast cancer too, and had hidden it from me for a year. So by the time she was diagnosed, it was far too late. So I've had two loved ones rotting away in front of my eyes over 3 years' time. Nothing fast trauma, but slow compounding, grinding, killing your soul trauma. Plus, I had bought them a house that I couldn't afford. There's all those kind of things. You had financial stresses. Talk about it. It's just was wow.
Well, and the other
Um,
thing too is like you know, the pace of healthcare, because you do work so much and have so little time off.
hmm.
I feel like we never deal with anything because I worked in a level one trauma center for 6 years, and you're
Yeah.
essentially, you have to maintain, you have to keep doing the job for 12 to
Hmm,
16 hours.
hmm,
So you never really deal with the person who just died, or maybe the
hmm,
two or three, people in a rollover who didn't make it and all that. And those are
hmm.
three of the 60 something patients.
Exactly.
And
Very
so
true.
I think it's kind of cultural in a way,
Hmm.
just by
It
nature of the
was.
beast.
Absolutely, it was. And unfortunately, when I was a younger doctor, that was still the way to go. This was still, yeah, come on, take a concrete pill and grow up kind of
Yeah.
thing. Plus, then again, of course, you have got the type A personality, and I'm 110%. I'm the best of the best of the best. So you put enormous pressures on yourself, which is quite good for the patient, but it's
Right.
not so good for yourself when ultimately you're inside breaking apart and you're losing your empathy, you're burning out at a rate that is no longer funny. And we have seen that so massively during COVID
Mhm.
around the world. And it's still, people are still out there and burning out left, right, and center.
Did you find that
Um,
alcohol just kind of helped shut it all down? Like if you work
exactly,
12 to 16 hours, that was the
exactly.
only thing that shut the brain off so you don't have to think about anything?
Exactly. That was
Yeah.
exactly it. It is 2, 3 glasses of wine, and suddenly my shoulders relaxed, and there's a warmth coming from my solar plexus. And it was just beautiful. It was just, oh, yeah. And then give me a bottle of wine. After the bottle of wine, then finally I was relaxing. And it was interesting. I fast forward now a little bit. No, actually, let's go in sequence. So that was in the past. The alcohol certainly helped me, and so here I was already worked into the ground, and now I had a bottle of wine, and suddenly I was cool. I was there. I was, let's clean up the garage, or let's do
Yeah.
the garden, or whatsoever. I had a second wind. And guess what? I was burning the last bit of energy that I had somewhere in my mitochondria, and I burned it all. And no surprise that you had this boom and bust cycle developing. So I practiced very hard how not to do it. That's what I know nowadays. But
Yeah.
obviously, I didn't learn the message easy. And in all fairness, I was not necessarily surrounded by role models who showed me a different lifestyle.
Yeah. Very true. And it's kind of a group thing. I mean,
Mm.
I can remember getting off at 7 a.m. and because I work 7 p to 7 a, and
Uh,
you
yeah.
guys go and, maybe you leave the restaurant or bar at noon, or you're dropping by the grocery store and buying a six-pack on the way home. You know,
Exactement.
7 a.m., 7:30 a.m., and you're getting the weird look from the cashier because everybody else is buying coffee and donuts and
Having
you're
said that,
buying beer.
having said that, that was exactly because of their six-pack, I know that I have missed another gang assault. In my very first job, I was working in the former East Germany just after the wall came down. And it was 7:45, something like that, a.m. that I came off my hospital shift there and was on the way back to Berlin. And so I jumped into that train and yeah, okay. And I just opened a can of beer there. And next stop of the train, the doors opened up and 8, 9 skinheads came in.
Oh
So
my.
right-wing extremists
Hmm.
came in. And I didn't have my trendy hairstyle at that time. I still had hair. So they came in and had come in into all entrances of that particular carriage. So I would have never been able to get out. And they sort of dropped themselves around me. So I was completely surrounded. They looked at me, just looked at me, with this kind of, shall we beat him up? Shall we not beat him up? What shall we do? But they were confused because I had this beer in the hand. So I was not the typical German Spießer, the typical kind of victim there. So it didn't make sense.
Right.
So they asked me, hey, what do you do? And I said, well, I'm a doctor. And one of the dudes said, I don't like doctors. What a shit. He said, look here. Then he had been in a fight and his finger was still sort of a bit to the side there. So obviously the doctors have done their best. Then he got in another fight and the finger was kept like that. And I just sort of said, hey, I'm sorry for that. Do you want a beer? That beer, I swear to God, by the end, when we were in Berlin, it turned out that there was a congress, a meeting of right-wing extremists, which they were attending on that Saturday. So we were best friends by the time I was in Berlin. Otherwise, I would have had my second gang assault within what, 5 years, 8 years, 10 years, whatever it would
Man.
have been. So here you go. Alcohol can save your life. I'm proof to that. Oh,
Carry
fuck
a
me.
beer
But
on you.
yeah, well, that's
Just don't drink
right.
it.
No, so but it is so bizarre. Also, we need to say that when I grew up, alcohol was ubiquitous. It was
Yeah.
everywhere. And in Germany, you can buy it at filling stations and petrol stations and whatever. You just it's there. It's 24/7.
Do they have a
And it
drinking
was
age
there
in
in
Germany?
I think so. No one gives a damn
Okay.
would be my
Well, that's what
at
I was
least when I
wondering.
was young.
That's why I was wondering if
Yeah.
people start drinking at 18 there. I know some countries,
It's a good
or
question.
beer
It
and
was
wine are normal for like maybe
if
Italians
there
or
was
something.
one, or if they that's right. That is absolutely right. It's absolutely okay as a youngster to have a glass of wine. Now everything surrounds alcohol, really,
Yeah.
and or it was certainly that when I lived there. So
Yeah.
so we at times alcohol definitely a good friend of mine for a long, long time. But of course, alcohol is a wrecking ball. And especially if you have no other skills to deal with life. And I guess maybe that was the reason that the universe actually presented me with so much shit,
Oh, never
to
thought of it
to
that way.
actually learn that, okay, you still think alcohol is a friend? Come on, let's give you another trauma. Come, he's still standing. Come on, guys, look at him. Hey, this is fun. Let's give him more.
Yeah, it's like
So
let's
I
it's
think
like
that,
another book to read because what I describe trauma as is like when you work in the ER, you see all this trauma. It's
yeah.
like taking a book that you haven't read and putting it on the shelf behind you. And then after 12 years, when I got laid off and whatever, all of a sudden I had shelves of books to read, which was all the trauma I had to me as a person,
Yeah,
as a kid, all
yeah,
my parents' trauma
yeah,
that
that's
I
true.
had no clue about, but then just all the death I had seen
Mm,
and everything. And then you're like, oh, now all of a sudden you have 12, 15, 20, 30 years worth of shit to deal with,
mm, mm.
you know? And you've never learned any mechanisms, coping mechanisms, any self-regulation because it
Exactly.
was always alcohol was the answer. Oh, that
Mm,
will take the edge off enough
mm.
for me to get through it. But then,
I, I love the word what you just said, self-regulation. It is not somehow magically curing you, although this is, of course, part of your journey, that you deal with the trauma of your past and come to terms with it.
Hmm.
And that is all part and parcel, no doubt. But it's a self-regulation. You are in control when you say self-regulate. This, you have moved on from being the victim of trauma, the pity party. Oh, poor me, another one. No, no, you have moved on at least from victim to survivor. And once you actually come to the self-regulation, I would debate that you're already in the thriver mode, because you're no longer responding with fists up and expecting
Yeah.
shit to happen. I nowadays still respond like that, with fists up, expecting shit to happen, but I've got now a whole armamentarium of skills to actually deal with shit, or actually prevent it happening, for that matter. So nowadays, I live a different life, but that started really about 10 years, 11 years ago, because that is when I ended up in rehab. And
How did that
that
come to
was really,
fruition? How did that start?
oh, basically, I mean, it is, the trauma was getting far too much. My drinking was getting far too much. And my wife at that time had enough. And I think that is a beautiful way of putting it. Prior to that, she was drinking like a fish as well. She is full of trauma. She's a broken woman as well. But she found Jesus Christ about 3 years before I got sober, and her church helped her. Although it was more in a Christian way rather than in a developmental,
Right.
psychological way. But it worked for her. So she became dry. And as so many people who become dry, she became vehemently anti-alcoholic. So guess what? My trauma increased because we now had these fights, these ongoing fights. But ultimately, one night, I was just so drunk and crying my eyes out because I was hopeless. I was helpless. The trauma had become so big that ultimately I probably was suicidal. I probably was really down and out. And I certainly, had I continued drinking the way I had, this would have been very clearly suicide in installments.
Right.
And so it had to stop. And this time, instead of a row, my wife had gotten around the head of the department of the
Hmm.
hospital in which I had worked, and he saw me in all my glory, crying my eyes out, snot, balls, really, really down and out. And behind my back, they admitted me, or sorted out an admission to a rehab hospital. And 3 days later, I started that journey. And that was the best thing I could have ever done, because it was the first time that I was exposed to people that really impressed me, especially once I realized that all of them had been addicts like I had been just a few years prior. Every caseworker, every nurse, every mentor, everyone I met there had been in my shoes. And they now demonstrated that you can live very full lives, actually nicer lives than the one I was living, without alcohol. So that was a big eye opener.
Now, were you pissed about them going behind your back and admitting you?
No,
No.
no, because that the next morning my family came in. I was hungover like shit, could barely remember the night before. And they came in and they actually cuddled to me. My two teenage sons and my wife all came in, cuddled to me, and showed me love. And I thought, what's going on here? And they said, we love you. And this is the story. Friday morning, you begin your rehab. And their love was completely disarming me. And I consented, and I admitted that I was powerless. I admitted in a 12-step system, I admitted that I could no longer do it. And I was looking forward, actually, to I don't know what. I didn't know what was
There's like
coming.
there's
And
you know like for me it's like there's got to be something better. Like I can't keep doing
that
this like because I
that's right.
know I was
Yeah.
suicidal at one point and I
Mm,
was like you feel like a burden to everyone. Nobody
absolutely.
understands you. There's all
Absolutely.
kinds of shit. And I was just like,
Absolutely.
at some point, I was like, look, I mean, I toyed with it and I kind of knew. And then once I realized what it did to my brain, I was like, look, I gotta have some sort of like homeostasis, some sort of
Yeah.
balance, some sort of equilibrium,
Mm,
with nothing. And then I need to maintain that for a while so I
mm,
know what normal is supposed to feel like.
mm,
And then
mm,
maybe I can
mm.
add in some things that start to build on it. But,
No.
for me, I was like, I just have to do something because
Yeah.
I cannot keep doing what I'm doing because, I'm going to end up
Mm,
divorced,
yeah. Yeah.
never seeing my child, and I just can't do that.
I think, Richard, I don't think that I was that had so much insight. I just tackled that just like I would tackle any other new challenge, threw myself into it without much thinking. And I was
Do you think your kind of type A personality was like, I'm gonna be good at this,
no, I'm
like
triple A, triple A.
you're like, hey, I'm gonna show them and I'm gonna kick this rehab's ass or whatever, Was it something kind of like that? Is like, hey, I
I
can
gotta
do
be the best rehabber ever.
it.
Absolutely. Oh, you know me well, Richard. You know me well. But then again, actually, that also helped me there because I threw myself into the tasks that I was given.
Hmm.
And these tasks were especially step 4 when it comes to actually dealing with your own shit and with the stuff that you are contributing to the party. Oh boy. Because I was angry, I was full of resentment about the fate that I had in my life, the gang assault, the trauma, multiple traumas, and the world was against me. And look, because the world is so bad to me, I now drink a whole bottle of vodka. Ha ha, that will
Mm,
show you. That resentment, anger, that was my driver. And this rehab brought me to a point where I started taking responsibility for my life. And that was something that I had not done in the way I do that nowadays.
right.
And that was the biggest turning point. And it's beautiful. What brought me to that realization was really that my mentor gave me a book to read. And the book is no longer in print. And it was a book written by a woman who one day came home to see her estranged husband standing in the driveway, and in front of her eyes was killing her 3 children and her father there. And that all happened within the first 10, 15 pages of the book. And I thought, oh shit. And I remember that realization. And it was like a pissing contest. Okay, you won. And that was the first time, for crying out loud. Now that I say it, it makes me feel embarrassed. But up until then, I had to live in my own private hell where I am the victim, where I am the only one who possibly could go through as much trauma as I have gone through. Therefore, you guys must understand how I'm maybe lack of coping. And suddenly there was this book, and I thought, okay. And that was the first breakthrough. That was day 4 or 5 of my rehab. And that started the ball rolling. Nowadays, fast forward in that case of ownership, I have swung completely the opposite way. So instead of hiding, I take pride in extreme ownership. Jocko Willink, US
Yeah.
Navy SEAL, wrote that book, and it's an amazing book. And it's ultimately, I agree with it, and it's not often, it's not always easy. But the more you practice it, the easier it becomes. Let's put it like that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
therefore, taking ownership of what you do right and what you do wrong, and unfortunately, we all still focus far too much on the wrong and on the negative thoughts. But this is another story. So bottom line is, that rehab started a journey. And that journey, for that I'm forever grateful. In that journey, I started growing, and a new version of me started appearing. And I think that is so beautiful for anyone out there who is still sort of in the grip of addiction to something. Once you actually get rid of that something and start addressing your emotions, your feelings, your drivers, the programs that are running subconsciously in your head. Once you actually uh, become to be aware of what is happening really underneath the surface, that's where the magic can happen. That's where you can start addressing some of the problems and where you can start healing. In my case, the gang assault, I had completely reframed it as something positive. Look at me, I'm the man, I'm the fighter, I'm the warrior, blah, blah, blah. And it only 5 years ago, so 5 years into my sobriety, did I realize the impact of what was actually happening. The degree of PTSD that was running my life, the sympathetic increased arousal that I constantly had, which is great as a doctor because it's really hard for you to catch me out in my job. So it makes me a great doctor.
Right.
But to be constantly 110%, oh, for crying out loud, no.
Isn't it crazy
And
though, like how you
yeah,
became a doctor, yet we're so underdeveloped in this trauma aspect?
trauma as in psychological trauma, yes.
Yeah,
In real trauma, I was an instructor for all the emergencies you can imagine, from ATLS to
right.
MSD, burns, you call it. I was instructing other doctors how to deal with emergencies.
But it's
And
easier
as a
to take care of others.
of course it is. Touche, touche. I could always focus on others, and I saw a depression walking into my consulting rooms a mile away. Did I see it in myself? Did I see the PTSD? No, I didn't.
Mm.
And again, it takes sometimes the universe to hit you 4 or 5 times with a 2x4 before you actually realize it. And here I was 5 years ago. A friend of mine went through some nasty PTSD exacerbation as a special forces medic, ex-medic.
Mhm.
And suddenly, he was away for a week, came back, and he said, okay, it's going to be all right. I'm going to be fine now. And I thought, yeah, right. What the hell are you talking about, boy? And then I observed him, and within 2 weeks, he was 90% back to his normal self. And I thought, what did you do? And he said, well, I've seen a hypnotherapist. And I said, good, give me the name and give me their number. And fast forward 2 months, I saw this woman. We had 3 sessions of hypnotherapy, and she pretty much 70% uncoupled my PTSD symptoms, my emotional reaction to my environment. And that was just amazing. So much reduced were the dreams, much reduced were the kind of where I just suddenly, as if someone punches you in the gut out of
Mhm.
nowhere. That was happening multiple times in the day. Of that, I barely get that anymore nowadays. Maybe once in a month or something like that, versus dozens of times in a day. So she took 70% of that away, and I was a very lucky man because she addressed that. Interestingly enough, there was still 30% around. I could live with that easy. Until really end of last year, I wrote an art or a book chapter called PTSD is My Superpower. And in
Oh, I
again
have that
writing
question.
again writing about it and dealing with it, that got rid of another 10%. And then just before Christmas, my first girlfriend ever got in touch with me out of the blue. And she found me on Facebook, and we had to chat. And I asked her, hey, look, you were there when I was assaulted then. Do you know what happened to the ringleader? And she said, oh, he's long dead. He was killed. And I thought, And I know it's so bizarre. I'm in New Zealand. I don't know how
Right.
many thousand miles away. This guy would never, ever, ever find me. Yet there was another 10% closure. And it just shows sometimes it takes years for you to heal. But it took different modalities, different insights. There was hypnotherapy, there was writing, journaling,
Hmm.
catharsis, so to speak, and then fate intervening and saying, yeah, the guy's dead. Okay, so now I'm left with about 10% PTSD. And
And
that's really the, the,
you know,
the 10% I like. These
I
are
was
these are the
thinking,
10%.
I was thinking when you said like, okay, I can live with 30%.
Yeah.
And I was like, you have to be careful. You have to continuously do work
Mhm.
and work on getting that 30% down because what if life all of a sudden adds another 50% out of nowhere?
Ooh, nice
And now
one.
you're up at
Nice one.
80%, you know.
Nice one. Like it.
So
Like
it's
it
like you
lots.
constantly have to be working at it, chipping
Oh,
away
yes.
different
Oh, yes.
modalities. Because I've noticed, like, as you've talked, and you're about 10 years older than me, evolved and learned. There's so many different things that you've touched on, and almost things that you have to try and do, and
Mhm.
different things
Mhm.
work for different people. But it's like
Mhm.
the only thing you can't do is stop trying.
Love it. Love it. And you're so right. And here I am, 10 years sober. Well, guess what happened at Christmas? I got divorced, and all became quite nasty. And there were a lot of nasty things happening, trauma, trauma, trauma to the power of five.
Hmm.
And I had a relapse over Christmas. So there was not much alcohol-free air I breathed for a period of maybe 2 weeks. And it was intriguing because my life, the way I knew it and appreciated and loved it, was all ripped apart. And it was really, really hard for me to accept it. So, heaps of new trauma, and I fell back into my old behavior. Now, there's nothing wrong with that. It is actually good because obviously the universe decided, the gods or whoever is out there decided I need to learn more lessons. And for that, I'm forever grateful. Firstly, when I was under the influence, I started journaling and I actually wrote things down. So after a bottle of wine, coming to the end of the second bottle of wine, I was 21 again. I wanted to dance like I was dancing. I was a pretty good dancer. I was a good martial artist. And, well, I can't sing proper, but I loved singing.
Right.
So here I was. I wanted to sing like Meatloaf. I wanted to dance. I've got sort of a certain dancer that I would die to be her partner of. I would probably break her toes, but that's another story. And what was the other? Oh, fight like John Wick. Okay, these were the
Mm,
three things that I wrote down. And then I realized the next day, hungover like hell, I thought, this is me at 21. I'm 57.
right.
Will I ever be able to achieve any of that? Well, I guess I could, but is that really the new me? Is that really my goal for the next, I don't know, 30, 40 years for the rest of my life? Or what is happening here? Why am I so drawn back? And I realized that actually I still need to do a hell of a lot of work. I've dealt with some trauma, but here you are. New trauma has developed, trauma that I had not foreseen, trauma that completely ripped away everything that was me. I was again laid bare.
Hmm.
And despite the fact that I had a number of new coping mechanisms, there were still a lot of lessons I had to learn. And that was then what was happening from January till now. We have got now end of June as we are recording this. I have done so many courses that specifically were there to let me grow. I have the very first thing I did was a course on radical self compassion. That sounds like a wishy washy, what the hell. And it was one of the hardest courses I've ever done.
Just real quick, after you're done listening to this amazing episode on this pretty freaking sweet podcast, give it a 5-star rating, and then head on over to the Podcast Connection Network and check out all the other amazing podcasts that we got over there. This is a plug. I got one too. It's called The Nonchalant Perfectionist. Check us all out. The link, you know where the link's going to be in the episode's description.
Because it makes you sit with your feelings. It makes you sit with your emotions and accept them and be there with them. These are the same emotions that you normally would run away from. The fear, the terror that I experience, the fear of uncertain future. I'm, beyond 50, a fat fuck. Who will ever love me? I'm unlovable. All the negative words that are coming and the negative voices. You have to sit with them in this course and then interrogate them in a nice way and then nurture yourself afterwards and accept you've just sat with these demons, with these things. And so this course has got sort of mnemonics to guide you through it. But this was one of the hardest things for me, to sit with the fear and the terror.
Yeah.
And then live to tell the tale rather than run away, read a book, watch telly, scroll myself stupid, or drink for that matter.
I feel it just talking about it. Like I can feel the emotion of it.
Oh, and that was a huge breakthrough, that course. And I thought, okay, there's more. So I'm nowadays studying hypnotherapy myself. I became a life coach. I'm working on numerous other ways how I can learn. My emotional intelligence is expanding quite strongly. I think I've grown more in 6 months now than I have probably in the 5 years leading up to it. So, and I think that is something for which I'm incredibly grateful. I don't wish it on my worst enemy because there is a lot of new trauma now and a lot of uncertainty, but at the same token, it has given me clarity. And I've realized this is just another meandering path, this path of sobriety, this path of self-improvement, this path of becoming a better version of yourself.
Yeah.
This will never stop. This will continue to the end. And whilst it is quite nice to say, yes, it's a meandering path, the problem is when you walk around a corner and there's suddenly a bear there who wants to eviscerate you. Yeah, well, not so nice, okay? Because you have to go through that shit.
Well, if you truly know the amount of work it takes to self-improve, then to think you got to do it for a lifetime, it's like a marathon.
True,
I mean,
true.
it is. It's very, I think it's very daunting, and maybe that's why people don't seek it out.
But then again, how do you walk a journey of 10,000 miles? You put your
One
right foot
step at a
forward.
time.
Exactly. And I think that is the beautiful thing. And I think that is what I have learned again and again and again. I'm taking it one step at a time, but not in the sense of the kind of one day at a time in early sobriety where you say, oh, it. Ah! No,
Yeah.
I'm taking it one step at a time when I say, okay, today I work specifically on X, and I have an overall game plan nowadays. It is when we talk about really step 7, if you were to follow the 12-step program, step 7 is all about you playing by putting new habits into place and cementing the new lifestyle and exposing yourself to new lifestyle. And that is exactly what I'm doing. But instead of just talking about it, I'm actually literally doing it. So I am cycling, rowing, walking, all
I
kind
went to the
of
water
physical
park
exercise.
yesterday with my daughter, and I was like,
Ooh,
I'm like 48. She's like, will you ride slides? And there's an old me that I was like, I don't really want to. I'm old. And I remember
yeah.
I think, I don't know when it was, but there was a
Yeah.
time when I can remember the last time I rode a water slide and I was overweight and it kept getting water in my face, but
Uh-huh.
I've actually lost some weight. I was like, yes, yes, I'll do it. I had
Good
fun,
man.
but the great thing is I'm in shape enough and I'm
Yeah,
with it enough at 48 to be able to say yes to my 10-year-old.
exactly.
And
Exactly.
what is that worth? When you think about
100%.
whether it's
Oh, yeah.
continuously improving,
Yeah.
whether it means dropping some weight,
Mhm.
making some different choices, whatever it is, to be able to make that happen, to be able to say yes, because
Yeah.
that's what they're going to remember. And yeah,
Richard,
so
you're the man. The man.
it felt
You're so
good.
right. You're so right. And this is it doesn't matter how old you are.
Right.
You are 10 years behind me from an age point of view. Well, guess what? I'm now 10 years ahead of you. My children are 21, 22. Well, soon enough, they have got grandchildren.
Right.
Granddad wants to go down that slide.
Yeah.
Now, granddad, about 18 months ago, was 146 kilogram. So coming close to 300 pounds. So can you imagine what happens to 300 pounds in a water slide? I turn into a bloody Polaris missile. I come out and break the concrete on the other side. So therefore, I haven't been down a slide forever. Now, Stefan today is 123 kilogram. So I've
There you
dropped
go.
close to 25 kilogram. And I'm not finished yet. So this is empowering. I'm proving to myself that that negative self-talk that I've earlier described is actually lies, is bullshit.
Yeah.
And we need to realize that really, of all those, well, okay, I challenge you. How many thoughts do you think you have got a day, Richard? What do you think? How many thoughts are going through your head in a day?
Oh, today they wouldn't stop. I
That's
journaled,
what.
I journaled, but I had so many thoughts that I had trouble
Mm,
journaling because
mm.
they were too
Exactly.
crisscross. I couldn't even
Yeah.
get out a thought.
Okay,
Yeah,
I let you off the hook. It's between 60 and 90,000 thoughts. That's somewhere figures that are being bantered around. Of
man.
those, let's say, call it 60,000. Of
Hmm.
those 60,000, 80% are negative. And they're typically either relying on something from the past or we are worrying about something from the future. And all of that is a heap of bullshit. There's so much negativity in our heads. And I think that is one of the key things that I've, again, more appreciated now in the last 6 months. Because it is easy to surround yourself with this negativity and believe your own voices in your head.
Hmm.
And those times when you force yourself to be grateful. When I say force yourself, there is a nice exercise for those of you who want to play. I want you to say to yourself for 3 minutes, I'm happy and grateful that. You need to start that sentence like that. I'm happy and grateful that. And then you are not allowed to stop talking. And initially, if you have never done it, you think, the fuck is he talking about? I'm not happy. I'm not grateful. This is a shit world. And then suddenly you feel, well, actually, I'm here in the shade, let's say in the United States. Okay, I'm actually happy and grateful that I'm here in the shade. I'm happy and grateful that I've got some water in front of me. I'm happy and grateful that I'm not hungover. I'm happy and grateful, and so on, and so on. And suddenly, your body starts to like that, and your mind starts to like that. You actually get into the rhythm there. And that's actually really cool, this gratitude kind of thing.
Hmm.
What happens? You change your state. You change the way you think. And that's powerful. So that's one cool thing, the journaling, the gratitude. Other cool things, it is, I mean, Tony Robbins says it so nicely, when you're in a down and out state, it's actually quite hard to be depressed. So you have to talk a bit more slowly. You have to have your head down, you drop your shoulders. It takes work. I want you to do the opposite. I want you to take a power stance. I want you to look up in the sky, grin like a madman, and now be depressed. Come on, I dare you, be depressed. It's really hard. So, by us changing our physical state For example, going for a walk, for example, doing anything, just saying, okay, yeah, no pity party, let's wash up now. Or let's actually, if it's this bad, get out of bed and actually just air the bed and have a shower. That's already a win. And now, whilst you're up, you might as well have a healthy breakfast. Don't eat the bloody sugary, high-processed crap. Nah, just eat something nice. Maybe just some eggs. Make yourself some protein. Just some scrambled eggs. End of the story. You've had a beautiful protein, kick-ass breakfast, and you've had breakfast. Look at that. 2 wins.
Yeah.
Etc. So these are all choices that I choose to make today and that you choose every day. And we have become creatures of habits, but our habits are far more supporting our life to live intentional, to live a life that is worthwhile living, therefore worthwhile recording, worthwhile sharing with others. And that's why you and I have got a show. That's why you and I are guests on other shows, because we want to demonstrate that ultimately life is shit. I mean, there is so much happening out there, no doubt. And you can't do anything about it. But if you think about Viktor Frankl was a psychiatrist in, during the Third Reich. He was in the concentration camp. And when he came out, he made it clear that whatever happens to you, you can't control. But you can control how you think about it and what you do. So when he looked at those people around him that were surviving, these were people who were focusing on the positive sides, on the challenges rather than the obstacles, on rephrasing adversity into maybe something, some silver lining somewhere, whatever that may be, the hope. And that is something that we can train, but we don't do that. We train to be, especially nowadays, 2024, my goodness, the media nowadays is such crap.
But if you
Honestly.
even just think of all the negativity, all the beliefs you probably have from stuff that you heard your parents, your grandparents, your
Oh, true.
great-grandparents, and all these people say, and
Yeah,
you're
true.
living with all these things, whether they told you you were fat once, you were chubby, you needed to lose weight, you needed to go on a diet, that stuck with you.
Yep.
But you don't have to keep wearing it. You don't have to own it.
But
Get
for
rid
that,
of
you need
it.
to know that it's there.
Right.
Many people don't know that. I have got a great challenge with money. Money in the sense of I hate to invoice people. I hate to send invoices out because somewhere there's a program running in me to say, well, I'm not worth it. Money is evil. There is, in order for you to make money, you need to be a bad person.
Right.
Crap, shit like that. That comes from my parents, who were always envious and jealous of others because they had a hard life. And so this is a program that I tried to get rid of my head for a long time. And it was actually it was an eye-opener. I went onto a life coaching course and I ended up in the center. So basically you get 15 people around you who are now coaching you. Talk about peer pressure. And there I was. And I on purpose chose that, my attitude towards money and subconscious kind of things. And beautiful questions, beautiful grilling that happened there. And half an hour later, I had explored so much more of these subconscious programs that I ever had in 57 years before. But I actually exposed myself for half an hour to a pressure cooker environment, which was incredibly loving. And actually, when I say pressure cooker, I made it a pressure cooker. In reality, it was full of love and full of support and full of everything. But here you are, you're singling yourself out. And I learned so much
Where you're
from
being
that
honest
30
with
minutes.
yourself.
Touche, touche. And
And
that is so
that right
important,
there is the pressure.
isn't it? And that is once we put ourselves in these scenarios where we're outside of our comfort zone, that is where we learn. That is where we grow. That is where we extend our comfort zones. And suddenly it's actually no longer so uncomfortable out there. The problem then is that you stay there. No, take another step until you're again outside of your comfort zone, because that's only how you grow. Okay, and it is so important. So life will give you shit sandwiches left, right, and center, and you can't do anything about it. But you can do something about looking after yourself. You can do something about your attitude towards trauma. You can accept that there will be days when you are down and out. And I want you in those moments to just accept it and say it's normal to feel like that. One of the lessons, or one of the kind of things I want you guys maybe to try, and it sounds stupid and it looks corny, just hang in there for a moment. What I want you to do is, if you're really down and out and there is no one around you and no one who really wants to be there for you, I want you stand still for a moment, close your eyes, and hug yourself. Stupid as it sounds, but hug yourself as tight as you can, as tight as you want to hug someone out there that you truly, truly, truly love. And I want you to imagine that this person is really you. You're hugging yourself. You're giving yourself that bear hug. And it feels so stupid, but it also feels so beautiful. And I can't do it now without laughing, because immediately I get this oxytocin rush coming through me. And it's so beautiful. It is that I took some shots. I set the camera on 3-second timer and took several shots, and I did this exercise. And it was me being grumpy to start off with, and then over 3 seconds, you see gently that grumpy face disappearing until there's this mild smile there. And it's just beautiful. I want you guys to experience these techniques. We talked about 4, 5, 6 different ones in the last 20 minutes. These are all little things. Now, they might not be suitable for everyone at every time, but out of those 6 techniques, maybe one might just be really handy to try. And then you've tried it one day and think, okay, that's actually not feeling too badly there. It's actually quite nice. Then the next day, maybe try another technique. And maybe expose yourself to some positive psychology and see what other people out there are saying. What other techniques can you learn? And that's where the magic starts. That's where you grow, because you gonna create new experiences for yourself. You're going to experience that feeling of love, that feeling of being nurtured, that feeling of that little child that suffered the trauma in the past, but that you're now looking after. That you're going to this child and say, it's going to be all right. I'm going to be there for you. I'm the grown-up me will now look after this inner child. You've gone through shit in your time. Now it's time that I look after you, and let's work together. And you're safe. And once we actually start doing these emotional exercises, that's when we begin to grow. And that's the more we can do that, the more there will be, you will be so busy living a life that you like, that actually alcohol, yeah, well, I don't need that.
Yeah. I don't really think about it that much anymore, and I stay busy between trying to be a better
Okay.
person and the
Oh, please.
podcast.
But one thing that we haven't talked about is it's so important, and I know I'm taking so much of your time, but guys, please listen. There are so many of us who are just switching codes. Okay, so you're drinking like a fish. The alcohol is there, and then you say, now, okay, no more alcohol now. Next thing is you're chain smoking like a bloody chimney. And then you say, no more smoking. It's not good for your health. Next thing, there is no donut or gummy bear safe from you. And, okay, so meanwhile, your midriff goes, explodes. We are just switching our addictions.
Yeah.
And that is so easy, and that is so common. It's called cross addiction. So, guys, need is a shit word. You must, even shittier word. You get to, guys, you get to practice self-compassion. You get to experience new insights into yourself. You get to experiment with new choices that are far more likely to lead you to become a new human compared with you falling back into your old tracks. You get to live alive. You have the privilege of exploring yet another way of becoming more fulfilled.
It should be a
So
little
I,
uncomfortable too, because that means
yeah.
you're not falling back to your old self, because your old
Mm.
self was comfortable.
Oh, touche. Nice.
I mean, I go through periods of where I feel like I'm okay, and then you have a
Mm.
day that teaches you something.
But then, yeah, exactly. Sometimes you win, sometimes you learn. And I
Yeah.
think that's so beautiful.
Yeah. So what else have you done besides, so w once you got sober, you said you've done the life coach. I see a picture behind you. Is that a book cover?
That's my book cover. That's right. My Steps to Sobriety.
What
I've
are,
written a book.
yeah,
Well, all the
let's talk
books
about
behind me. So this one there is My Steps to Sobriety. That's the third edition that is going to be released within really a fortnight from us recording this interview. On the other side here, this is a children's book I've written, Esmee the Mindful Mouse, and all the other books I've been, well, yeah, there's Depression Light to
it.
Me.
Uh-huh.
So a number of books that are out there with my name on.
And
But
with
I
the
think my
children's book, what's the kind of go behind that? Trying to teach children self-compassion? Or
Absolutely. More the difference between having done something not so nice and being a bad mouse. So in this particular
mm,
case, this is a very vivacious young mouse who is playing around and is doing all kind of things with her friends. But because she is so full of life, sometimes she messes up the little house where her friend is living or is waking up another friend who has been sleeping, etc. And they are angry with her. And so she's wondering, oh, am I a bad mouse? And then a magical being appears and says, no, you're not a bad mouse. You just have done something bad, but your friends still love you. So the difference between, I mean, very, very good for addicts
yeah,
here. Okay.
I feel
Love the
that.
addict, hate the addiction. Okay. And it's the
Hey,
same
I've
thing
I've
there.
done bad things. I'm not a bad person. I know at my
Touche.
core. You don't go
Touche.
into healthcare to help people, and you just went down a bad road, made some poor
Exactly.
decisions. You weren't the best version of yourself for some
Exactly.
time, but
And I think that, but that's a privilege again to understand that and to get this insight. That's humility. That's authenticity, integrity, all these things that are missing from so many lives today. You and I had to learn the hard lessons, and therefore we can show those traits now. They mean something to us, whilst in many other cases it doesn't. So
yeah.
yes, but so these books are all there. If you were to go to my website, neffinspiration.com, you will find links to the books. And yeah, this one
And it'll
here
be in the
is the
show
third
notes.
edition. Absolutely. Thank you.
Well,
And
what
this,
are
hmm?
I wanted to ask you, I mean, so would you change anything?
Hmm. It's a hard question. I often wonder how things would have been if that, yes, I would have made similar mistakes. Would I now go back? No. If I could go back, would I change anything? No, I don't think I would. Because all these lessons, they were meant for me to learn. I believe that there are higher powers out there.
Hmm.
I believe that I was meant to be on this journey. I was meant to be experiencing what I have experienced, coming out the other end. And regrettably, I don't think I'm done yet. So
You probably
my
never
gut
will.
feeling is, well, no, but I think if the last 18 months are a sign of things to come, then for fuck's sake.
What is it they say though? You're either in it, going into it or coming out of
Yeah.
it.
Touche, touche.
So I
So I
mean,
think there is, I will not go back. No, I will not change anything, but I will do my utmost to live my life in the most intentional way I can. Every single second, I will make the most out of it. Right now, I'm thoroughly enjoying talking to you. Later on, I will go outside and take a deep breath of some fresh air. I will probably go for a walk. I will eat something very
mm,
healthy. Every second, I will do something nice. At some stage today, my mind will go blah. I recorded a great interview myself this morning. I was a guest here. I had already done a workout. At some stage, my mind will say,
yeah,
oh, come on, boy, take a break. And then I will intentionally scroll through YouTube shorts, etc. And that's okay. I will accept that I
yeah.
say, yes, right now, this is my time out. My brain can just go blah. And that's cool. But I will not regret things.
Yeah.
I will do my utmost to enjoy every moment, whatever I choose to do.
What's
And
one of
I
the
think
biggest
that is
things you've learned over the journey? Like kind of a overarching theme, if there's like one thing that you're like,
the past does not equal the future. And in the past, I would have said, or I would have used that in a positive way,
mm-hmm,
thinking that the past of my addiction, the past of my trauma, the past of that, and now look the life that I'm living now. And now I actually have to accept that this is pretty much like Harry Potter. You know, there's this where they've got those kind of gummy bears with all kind of tastes, and with that they don't just mean nice tastes, but also really, really bad tastes.
mm-hmm,
Life is exactly like that. The past does not equal the future. You cannot rely on the fact that your family is around you because they might not be, either in my case, divorce or the sheer fact that my children have moved to different continents.
mm-hmm.
That is also the past does not equal the future. So never, ever, ever trust this this complacency. Oh, everything is all right. Everything will be fine. Be aware of what is happening around you. General Mathis said, um, yes, he has got several good quotes, but one is basically always have a knife on you. You never know if you have to cut a cheesecake or slice someone's throat. Maybe a bit on the harsh side, but I actually like that situational awareness, that realization that you don't know what is happening in the near future. So be prepared. That means be your best on a spiritual level, if that means for you maybe to revisit your deity, your God, or whoever you believe in. If you want to do some meditation, if you want to touch base with other powers within yourself. Emotionally, why are you angry? Why are you down? What can you do about it? Physically, are you in the best physical state to deal with a new trauma?
Mm-hmm.
Those kind of things. So look at the pillars that make your life and think of taking action, not massive action, not Tony Robbins, let's change everything. No, I want you to take tiny actions, but in a consistent manner. Aim for 1% change, 1% input. And if you ask me 1%, well, what is 1%? Actually, that's about 15 minutes a day. It's 1% of your time. So therefore, could you spend 1% of your day to maybe become a better husband or a better father or a better physical specimen? 15 minutes? And if you don't have 15 minutes in one block, well, break it down in 3 blocks of 5 minutes. Could you do that? Yes, you can.
And make sure
And
you do
that's
it
where
for
the power
yourself
is.
too.
Oh, touche, absolutely. But you do. You actually by putting all these things in, you actually very quickly accumulate wins. And if you
Mm-hmm.
then start recording them in journaling or in your, I don't call it to-do list, I call it to celebrate list. So I celebrate, okay, I have done this morning, bang, 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 bang.
I
Wow.
was just gonna say that. I actually heard, I was listening to a podcast earlier in the week and they were like, they don't, instead of writing a to-do list, they write all the things that they've done. So it's like listing all the things you've done. And even if you
That's
want to
right.
be minimal to start with to get wins and gain
Uh-huh.
momentum, brush your teeth. Hey, I
Absolutely.
showered today. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
But just to show all these little things that you can accomplish.
Ah, beautiful.
Yeah.
That's
That's
exactly
why
it.
I was actually thinking of that when you started with that. I was like, man, I just heard this. That's crazy.
It's just any trick, you call it trick, any technique, any skill
But
that we
it's
can
really about
utilize.
shifting how you think about things.
Exactly.
And that was the thing. I mean, however it was that the podcast that I heard, and once I knew what alcohol was doing to my brain kind of and how it depressed me, that's where it clicked for me. It
Mm,
clicks for people differently, but as long as you get it somehow, some
mm,
way, you know, you just got to keep searching. And as long as you don't stop trying, eventually somewhere it'll click and something will
mm,
make sense. And then, there's so many different techniques, like you said, but
mm,
whatever kind of technique you need to use that gets you going in the right direction and gives you momentum, because
mm.
that's the most important thing. Because guess
So true.
what? If you go from a paved road to a dirt road, you can lose momentum,
Mm.
you know, unless you keep it going. So,
That's right. That's right. But you need to know how to drive on the paved road and
yep,
on the
that's right.
road. And then suddenly you've got ice and you've got a bit of snow there, and you need to know how to drive on these roads. Again, you can
Hmm.
only do that through experience, but you might as well also link up with those people who have been driven these
Yeah.
different roads before. So don't try to try to figure it out all alone. Okay? The sheer fact that you guys are still you're listening to this podcast and watching this podcast shows me that you have got a vested interest there. So you're
Yeah.
doing exactly the right thing. So you are linking up with others that have been on this journey before and are maybe a bit further down the road than you
Hmm.
are. And I think that community, that bringing people together, that is one of the real big advantages out there nowadays with social media. You can choose who you listen to. And you are such a great example here, Richard, for actually providing this platform where people like me can just rabbit on and on and
Oh,
on
I love it.
about.
I love it. No, my and that's kind of one of the things where, there's different styles of podcasting and podcasters when you start looking, and there's people who do 15-minute episodes, 20-minute
Mm,
episodes, hour.
yep.
How long should an episode be? But I find what I enjoy, what I listen to on my days off, of why I even probably started podcasting, are kind of longer format stories. It's kind of a piece of, you're telling a story, or we're talking about history, historical things,
Mm, mm,
understanding that trauma from
mm,
your parents coming out of Germany, out of a Second World War,
mm,
and all that. And even like you
mm,
said, when the wall fell and there was no work for doctors, I mean, that's bananas, especially if you're over here in the US and haven't experienced that kind of stuff, and you haven't traveled, or you've only read about it in history books. Now you get to hear about it
mm.
firsthand. And
Exactly.
to me, that's just kind of so important, because, one of the things I think that's, regardless of where we're from, we're so much alike. I'm American, you're German, like, but it's
Mm,
like, and we fought over differences and all kinds of stuff, but we're much more alike and have so much more to learn from each other. And we're all having to share
mm,
all this trauma that we've all been through, and
mm,
if we want to make it more united, more um just better people, then it's kind of through
mm,
connection, uniting, and realizing that regardless of how different,
mm,
on what sides of history we were on, that we share much more, and we've walked through a lot of the same doors.
Yeah.
And but it's better that we're now trying to do better, and instead of tear things down and fight over stuff, we're actually, coming together on a
Mm.
platform to unite people and try to, just help them be the best versions of themselves, because
I
we've
love
had
it,
to
what
do
you're
it
saying.
ourselves,
Mm.
so. But yeah, it's
And
like I
and
always
if
said,
we
I'm not
look,
going to
look,
change
brother,
my
if
format.
we no, no, brother, if we two can do it, come on, look at two of us. Come on, if we can do it, guys, you out there, you have got the best chance ever. Okay, so let's be
Yeah,
honest. We can all change.
yeah, yeah, and that's yeah, that's the hope. It's been wild. Yeah, I won't really talk politics, but we had our first presidential debate last night, and it's been all over social media. It was just, oh my
Does it really?
gosh.
I cannot understand. You have got about 320 million people, and it comes down to those two nut jobs. Honestly, how does that happen?
Uh,
I
uh,
can't believe it. Exactly.
I
But I
always
think
say, you know what? The only thing, I don't know it's not going to change my day to day and what I'm about and what I'm trying to do. So hopefully not, but you never know. You never know. You never know.
then again, whatever the future brings, you
Hey,
need to be in the best possible shape
yeah.
to go through it. And I loved that what you were saying when I was happy with the 30% PTSD. You're right. What did life bring me? Another 150% not so nice thing, and it derailed me. So classic example there. Don't be complacent, but go out there and make yourself the best possible version. And with that, you model how others can maybe follow in your footsteps. And I think that's our role and our duty as fathers, as parts of society.
Hmm.
We can do the best there.
Yeah.
So Richard, you're an amazing man.
I always say go out and be the person that you want to meet. So
Touche.
yeah, unless you like meeting assholes, then don't be one, you know? If you want everybody to be cool with you, then just be
Yeah,
cool with them. Treat them
yep.
with respect. Treat them like a person, Don't be petty. Be
Mm,
respectful, especially if you have to share space in public with somebody.
mm.
Don't be a jerk. Be polite. It's pretty easy stuff. But we still get mixed up over it every day. But where can people find you?
Neffinspiration.com. I think that's the easiest thing. I publish, probably 4 or 5 articles a week, and you can find links to my show, to the beautiful guests that I had the honor to interview, plus equally new developments, my book coming out. So links to my books will be there. So it's all cool. Neffinspiration.com. Very easy, all written in one.
And what's one good thing that's happened that never would have happened in a million years had you not taken this journey, whether it's through writing books or podcasting or, decided to get sober? And what's the best thing that's happened?
Ooh, that's hard because there's so many things. I can immediately think of dozens of things that would have never occurred had I not started on this journey. Uh, and there are many things which will continue to go through my head. I think this question will not leave me now for
Mhm.
the rest of the day. And it will be an avalanche of good things.
It'll put you in a state
Um,
of gratitude.
uh, uh, Absolutely. So therefore, me being here with you, for example,
Mhm.
this is me being able to speak truly and honestly about my feelings, about my experiences, being open about my failures. My goodness. Do you think 30 years ago I would have said, yeah, getting divorced and yeah, and financial difficulties and yeah, this and that and that? It never ever. But
Yeah,
nowadays I can address it without,
the shame.
correct, the negative emotions that otherwise would have completely derailed me
It
and
takes
would have
practice.
dragged. Yeah, absolutely. So I think that my emotional, I think my emotional literacy. I think that is what I'm
Oh,
most
I like
grateful
that
for.
word. Mm,
Mm.
I like that. When I started, because I'm, 50 published episodes, 51 at midnight, many recorded, but in the beginning when you start talking about this kind of stuff, you're like, oh my gosh, I'm going to be judged when I hit publish and this and that, the other, and you think of all kinds of things. And then I've just spoken about it more and more, become more comfortable with it. And
Mm.
you kind of, I why would I want to go back to being that person? I'm a better person. You know, I look better, I
Absolutely.
feel better, I'm more comfortable with it. And if that's your thing and this would help you be a better person and you need help, and hopefully the conversation was for you. And there's other conversations throughout both of our podcasts that talk around this actual subject. So, I think it's about determining if that's your path that you want to walk, then
Mm.
it's there. But and I think the more you're honest with yourself and you become more comfortable with it, then that shame kind of goes away.
Mm.
Because I think, I don't know, I don't I'm trying to think of what actually, why you feel shame. Maybe just because
Sh-
you were a bad person, but
mm.
you're
You are
you
not a bad person, but remember
you did bad
that
things.
yeah. Remember, you are coming from a long history of small tribes. 50,000 years ago, there were maybe between 50 and maybe 100 people living in your tribe, maybe less. And if you don't pull your weight, if you don't do what needs to be done, then you're going to be thrown out of your tribe, which is a death sentence. So, guess what? Over all this time, feelings like shame and guilt have been hardwired into you.
Mm.
And because to protect you, it's a life saving skill to feel guilt and shame so that you do not get thrown to the wolves, literally. So, here you are. So, you are fighting against something that is hardwired deep, deep, deep inside of you. Well, guess what? This will be triggered again and again, and you need to learn about it. You need to accept it for what it is, that it is a default mechanism to protect you. But nowadays, often enough, it has got no longer a role to play. And it certainly has no role to play at 3 o'clock in the morning when
Mm.
it plays you Richard Kraft, the worst of, on
Right.
replay. No, no, no. The way you spoke when you were 15, this way you spoke to that girl has nothing to do with your life today. Okay? So let's be clear about that. And I think that is where we need to be more emotionally aware and accept emotions for what they are. Often enough, they are there for a damn good reason. But often enough, that reason is no longer so up to date 50,000 years
I
later in
like
this
that.
case.
I like that
Mm.
because we've evolved, and it needs it needs a little update. Um,
A
we're
little? You think
yeah,
so?
because but it reminds me kind of medicine and what you would consider kind of hippie woo-woo shit, in terms of, we learn to diagnose symptoms and treat symptoms very well. But, even in the United States, mental health has always been,
Mm.
the practitioner to patient ratio is not very good. And therefore, but we're starting to learn how much more important the brain, the mind,
Yeah.
emotions, and all those kinds of things are, maybe, as opposed to just treating it symptomatically. And that also, teaching kind of, yes, it falls to the parents. And I attempt to teach my daughter to self-regulate and identify emotions and communicate and whatnot. But, you have to wonder of, is this something too that should be part of a curriculum, and
Oh,
learning about the brain, and at what age do they start learning this kind of stuff?
oh, that's easy.
We learn about
Yesterday.
we learn about everything else. We teach them about
No,
everything else.
And that is so important. You're so right. And this could be the topic of a whole other discussion. But
Oh yeah.
ultimately, it's so important that we start early. I am guilty as charged here because I did not do that with my children. Yet, to a certain degree, I'm blessed because they have seen my transformation. They have seen my willingness to deal with my emotions, to own up to my failures, to do the hard things in life. And especially so the last 6 months, being very open about my journey, being open with them
Mhm.
about that I'm not the superhero, that I'm not the man that they saw when in the past. I was
Right.
always the fighter. And now I'm the man who is far more balanced and far more honest. And with strengths that are pretty good superpowers, but also weaknesses that are my kryptonite. And so let's be open about them. And me showing that is probably leading them to seek counseling at a much earlier stage, to be aware of their emotions at a far earlier stage. I think it's beautiful. I had my boy, my 21-year-old, ring me yesterday and said,
Mm.
"Look, Dad, I'm really feeling quite depressed today, really feeling down." And he's going through a lot of shit himself. So,
Just for
but the
him to be
sheer
able to
fact,
call you is
my
huge.
point, my point, exactly. And that is strength, that is leadership, that is you, whatever label you want to put on it, this is
It's
positive.
building a long, trusting relationship,
Mm.
which is what I want to
Yeah,
do with my daughter. Because I told her
indeed.
today something. I said, "Have I ever lied to you?" And she said, "No." And it's like, okay, because I want for her, good or bad,
Mm.
to always be able to come to me because we can
Nice.
solve it as long as we know the
Yeah.
truth, as long as we know what's going on, you know?
Wow.
And
Wow.
for you, that was my first thought is like, at least your son reaches out to his
That's right.
father. That's huge. That's a
Mm.
step in the right direction, you
That's
know?
right. But it's also that's the making amends.
Yeah,
There was a time when he gave me one broadside after the other, telling
right.
me what he thought of me.
Me and my dad didn't
But
talk for 10 years. And, now it's been 8 or 9 years, nine
mm,
years, 10 years,
yeah,
that I see him often, you know,
how beautiful
but,
is that?
and sometimes I can't even remember why we didn't talk, but yeah,
Yeah,
regardless, I'm just glad we're able to spend time now and
exactly.
I can be honest
Oh,
and open with him and, the same way you and your son are able to. And I think that, that's what we should be going for as parents,
mm, yeah,
in the, around the world. I mean, that's what you want to be building. You don't want your kids reaching out to other people. But I guess, of
absolutely.
course, you have to make sure that you're up to snuff for them to do that.
But then
You
again,
know?
it's our journey. It's our journey. And
Yeah.
let's be honest and let's be accountable. Let's be clear and but it's our privilege. Come on
Yeah.
now.
Yeah. And that was it. Like I got to go down water slides at 48. And I said, she's gonna remember it now. And hey,
Yeah,
what if something happened and I couldn't do this at
yeah,
50?
yeah.
You never
See,
know.
my older son, he was an instructor on one of these adventure zip line kind of things that
Oh,
we have got here. And I'm too heavy. I was always too heavy for it. They've got a 120 kilogram cutoff. Well, guess what? I'm 123 now. So the next time he is coming, he is hopefully coming in 2, 3 months' time, by which time I'm easily under 120. So yes, let's actually do the adrenaline forest
that's
and
cool.
and go out. Yeah, exactly. Stuff like that. So even if the past did not allow you to do things because, well, the past does not equal the future. And here we are again, full circle.
And not only that though, at least, like with my father and I, at least we're here now. So
Mm.
it kind of means really like enjoy the present, be present. Try to just soak it all in because we get to be here.
Mm.
You get to do that.
So true. So
Yeah.
true.
Well, All right. Speaking of that, I'm gonna go spend time with my family. It's 9:30 p.m. here.
All
Um,
right. I
and
took a lot of your time. I'm sorry
oh
for
no,
that,
no,
but
no. This is
at the same,
I have some that are close to 3 hours, so not a big deal.
I think the reality is that when two souls collide, which have gone through similar experiences, it's so wonderful what comes out. It's like magic.
Yeah,
And for that,
yeah.
I'm very, very grateful to you. So thank you for letting me grow today by connecting with you. And it
Yes.
was it was a lovely, lovely time. Thank you
It
so
was what I
much.
needed today. I needed that connection. So thank you. But all right, man. I will I will shoot you an email and let you
Mhm.
know all the details. And I still got my list. I haven't forgotten about the 10 for 10. So
Cool.
all right.
And you guys out there, thank you very much for checking in with Richard. Please press the like and subscribe to his show. The more you can support him, the more we can get these algorithms going, and the more fantastic guests he can have on his show.
That's right. And the more people we can help and impact together.
Cool.
Awesome. All right, man. I'll see you.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Well, that's a wrap. I hope you enjoyed the conversation. Please remember to rate, review, and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts from. Remember, go out and be the person that you want to meet.
Hey, go.
Asteroid of fear.